Well, good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, the big news of the day is the proposed agreement with the Iranians, and I've asked Chairman Corker and Chairman McCain to join us today to give you their take on what this agreement appears to involve.
Thank you. Today, about 10:05, we received 159 pages of a portion of the agreement. There are other portions that are yet to come. We still have the classified annexes. We have the certifications from the Director of National Intelligence and Secretary of State. So we expect to receive those materials over the next several of days. And at that point in time, the 60-day review process will begin. I'll have to say that when we passed over with the interim agreement from dismantling their program to moving towards agreeing that there would be enrichment, and then over time moving to what I would call managed proliferation, we really crossed the Rubicon. And I think that numbers of people have been looking at the qualitative issues of what remains, the issue of previous military dimensions and making sure we fully understand how that's dealt with, the issue of anytime, anywhere inspections and how that's dealt with, the issue of ballistic missiles and how that's dealt with, the issue of research and development and how that is dealt with, and the entire issue of sanctions relief. I will say that right now, based on our staff going through the agreement for a couple of hours and meeting with me prior to this, I would say the agreement has taken a downward trend. The arms embargo issue, the conventional arms are going to be, embargo will be listed in 5 years. Missile development in 8 years. We're going to have the issue of the anytime, anywhere is not anytime, anywhere. And so there's numbers of issues that are going to be of great concern. But here's what we're going to do. Over the next 60 days, we're going to go through this in great detail. We're going to have a thoughtful and deliberate process. My guess is, based on timing, we'll have hearings that will begin in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And likely what we'll do is vote on this when we return from recess. But I'm very skeptical, but I want to go through this process and make sure we fully understand what it is that we're voting on. My guess is, I'll close with this, those who believe that this truly is going to keep Iran from getting a nuclear weapon will vote for it. Those who believe that that is not the case and the world is not going to be safer, and in some ways it may pave the way for them to get a nuclear weapon, will vote against it. That's our responsibility, and I look forward to carrying out those responsibilities with other members of the Senate and House.
We intend to review the provisions of this agreement thoroughly. The Armed Services Committee will hold hearings on it, especially the verification regime and the effect on the regional military balance. We know that this agreement went from the initial objective of Iran never having a nuclear weapon to a period of time where Iran will be able to behave with impunity and without restraint. There is no addressing in this agreement that we've seen that addresses Iran's role as a chief sponsor of terror throughout the region. There is no addressing of their continued aggression in basically controlling 4 countries, Iraq, Syria, Iran, and Lebanon. I recently came back from Afghanistan and learned that the Iranians are now providing weapons to the Taliban. There's no provision for the terrorist activities of Iran, the chief sponsor of terrorism in the region. Apparently, there are sanctions lifted on various institutions that have been involved in the arms business. And in particular, there's allegation that Qasem and Soleimani, that the sanctions are lifted against him, the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, who was responsible for the deaths, according to General Dunford, before the Armed Services Committee. The copper-tipped IDs were sent into Iraq by Soleimani that are responsible for the death of 500 Marines and soldiers. This deal, as far as I can tell, has gone from preventing Iran from ever having a nuclear weapon to now lifting restrictions on Iran, including on conventional weapons within 5 years, which Secretary Kerry assured us there would be no connection between conventional weapons and nuclear weapons. I predicted that in their desperation that the President and John Kerry would make a bad deal. It looks very much like they made a worse deal than even we had feared.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would have been an acceptable deal in your mind?
Well, this appears to be, again, we're going to take a look at it, as Chairman Corker and McCain have said, but it appears to fall well short of what the goal we all thought was trying to be achieved, which was that Iran would not be a nuclear state. So describing the perfect deal, I guess, would be a deal under which Iran would not be able to acquire nuclear weapons.
The White House says that any deal when you're negotiating with your enemies is not going to be perfect. Do they have a point?
This is considerably short of perfection, apparently. We knew what was working, sanctions. Imagine what we might have now if we'd spent the last 2 years ratcheting up the sanctions as opposed to this.
Senator O'Connell, in the past few days, maybe the past week, many of your colleagues, including some of the senators here, have been putting public pressure on Secretary Clinton, saying she owns this deal, she should repudiate it, that would put pressure on Democrats around here to vote if you wanted to override. That didn't happen today. She all but endorsed the deal. How does that complicate your efforts that are going to be coming up to override what's likely to be a presidential veto?
Well, look, the president is the most important Democrat in the country, and he's obviously in favor of this. He negotiated it. He's going to work hard to get the 34 votes that I know he knows he needs in order to sustain it. So it'll be a real challenge for him because I think it falls short in a lot of ways.
Is it harder now, though, that Secretary Clinton has endorsed?
I think it was going to be hard in any event, and I'm sure he's going to work hard to get his 34 votes.
Senator O'Connell,
Yeah.
on the issue of budget reconciliation, how do you plan to use budget reconciliation? Do you plan to use it on to repeal the Affordable Care Act? And when will the authorizing committees report budget reconciliation?
Yeah, I don't have a time to give you, but we're certainly going to consider using budget reconciliation for repealing as much of Obamacare as is reconcilable. There are certain rules that have to be applied to what is reconcilable, and that's an active consideration, as you can imagine.
Senator O'Connell,
Yeah.
have you had, actually on the highway bill, how long do you intend to move the highway bill for, and do you have from Senator Hatch and others the kind of offsets that you need?
Yeah, let me just say there's bipartisan enthusiasm for a multi-year highway bill. We've had some conversations inside our conference about a way to pay for that. And I've also had conversations with prominent Democrats who are involved in this issue, and we're hoping to be able to come together behind some way to get a multi-year highway bill. I'm fairly optimistic that we can do that.
Do you disagree
Thanks a lot.
with Mr. Ryan's approach?